Let me just say for now real quick, it wasn't funny. Well, most of it wasn't funny. I did laugh a few times. Most of it wasn't funny, but that's not the point. Yo, what's happening, people? Okay, so this is Hannah Gadsby, Nanette. I guess we're still trying to figure out if Hannah Gadsby's funny or not. So that's what we're trying to do. So this is Nanette. This is, I guess, her first stand-up special, or maybe not her first. I don't know, but at least her first one that's on Netflix anyway. It's from 2018. Is rated 15 and is an hour and 9 minutes long. Here's the thing. So I watched Douglas and I enjoyed it. I liked it. I know there's a lot of people out there that don't like Hannah Gadsby, that say she's not funny and all that kind of stuff, but I gotta keep it real. It made me laugh. But she did say something quite interesting during that particular stand-up special, which was that this one, she talked about this one, Nanette, and said that she purposefully made it so that it's not funny. And then she styled it as a comedy in order to get as much views as possible. Now, as much as I could understand why you would do that from, say, a business point of view, you want to get as much eyes on your products as you can, even though you know it's technically not comedy and that whole thing. If that is true, it is a little bit misleading. More than a little bit misleading. Tell people it's comedy and then it's not. Apparently it's a lot of trauma being discussed in this particular one. So I guess I should prepare myself not to laugh. It's going to be, at least from what I understand, it's going to be a lot of talk about trauma and various serious subjects that things that she's been through. And you know what? I think it's important that people talk about those types of things. But when you tell people it's a comedy show, that could be a lot. But anyway, I have about an hour 26 minutes before my car is fully charged. So let's press play on Hannah Gadsby, Nanette, and see what she gotta say. Guess one of those dogs is Douglas. The other one is Doug Full. All right. Let's see how unfunny this is. Sydney Opera House. Okay, that's pretty cool.
Mainly because I'm in this situation. People are like, oh, good bloke. You get a bit close and it's like, oh, no, trickster woman, what are you doing? From Tasmania.
Tasmanian devil. Why don't you come to Tasmania?
Everything's very relative, but...
She means inbreeding.
We didn't have social media like we do now, but...
Right. I should have thought about the logistics of sitting in my car like this for an hour. Oof. Maybe not such a good idea after all.
Another reason I struggled with... there are no facts about unicorns.
Not true. Unicorns exist.
My favourite sound in the whole world is the sound of a teacup finding its place on a saucer.
It's a pretty good sound, to be fair.
I told lots of cool jokes about homophobia. Really solved that problem.
Wow.
I told a story about the time this young man had almost beaten me up. I mean, what if I told you I was a murderer? You would hope that's a phase.
Okay.
My favourite comedian was Bill Cosby. There you go. It's very healthy to reassess, isn't it? And
Bill Cosby was a lot of people's favourites.
Out of self-deprecating humour. I mean, I'm clearly gender not normal, but I identify as tired.
Yep, I think a lot of people can relate to that one. Just tired. Done with it.
And the lights turn blue. More accidents, ironically enough. For opening a brothel. Can we just have more words? How about a good dick? Get a cock up, you drink some jizz! Mainly because when you laugh alone, that's mental illness, and that's a different kind of tension.
Hey, sometimes you just gotta.
A setup and a punchline. A question with a surprise answer. I've been learning the art of tension diffusion since I was a children. It was a survival tactic. I must have skipped a dose that day because I was feeling being lectured by a fart. It took me another 10 years to understand that I was allowed to take up space in the world, but by then I'd sealed it off into jokes like it was no big deal. We think it's more important to be right than it is to appeal to the humanity of people we disagree with.
Oh, boy, there's some truth in that.
But we think reputation is more important than anything else, including humanity. Celebrities and comedians are not immune. There's a few people in the room are going, look, I think she's lost control of the tension.
Yeah, that's
Because I
comedy.
couldn't tell the part of the story where that man realized his mistake. And he said, oh no, I get it. You're a lady faggot. He beat the shit out of me and nobody stopped him. Pull your fucking socks up. Fashion advice from a lesbian. That is your last joke.
Ooh, there's a lot to be said about this. My car's almost finished charging. I'm gonna have to move my car because I ain't trying to get fined out here.
Picasso's mistake was his arrogance, and our mistake was to invalidate of a 17-year-old girl because we believed her potential was never going to equal his. There is no way anyone would dare! There is nothing stronger than a broken woman who has rebuilt herself. I feel I may have been persecuting you this evening. Well spotted.
Battery running low.
Comedy, because the only way I can tell my truth and put tension in the room is with anger. I just needed my story heard. I just don't have the strength to take care of my story anymore.
Okay. Well, there's a lot to be said about this. I've got to move my car. Let me just say for now real quick. It wasn't funny. Well, most of it wasn't funny. I did laugh a few times. Most of it wasn't funny, but that's not the point. There's a lot of... I'm going to use the word brilliance, actually. I think there's a lot of brilliance in what she did, but also I understand why it doesn't gel with a lot of people as well, and that's valid too. But, yeah, let me move my car before I get fined. Let me come back. Oof. All right, just had to move my car and put up some place real quick. Okay, so let's talk about this. Here's the thing. I watched Douglas first, which is a second Netflix special, and in that she does mention that with Nanette, it was made not to be funny. She talks about trauma and stuff like that. So I feel like my expectations were set differently than most people watching it for the first time. So I feel like with this, if you're somebody who knew about Hannah Gadsby for, the 10 years that she's been doing comedy prior, you're into it, you know what she's about, you kind of have an idea of the type of comedy she does and the types of things she talks about, and this wouldn't be anything too far outside, or at least I imagine it wouldn't be anything too far outside of what you might be thinking she's going to do. But if you're somebody who maybe never heard of her and maybe watching it for the first time, whether at the show or on Netflix or wherever you might watch it for the first time, if you never heard of her, then yeah, I get it. You see something that's marked comedy, you watch it, and a large part of it isn't comedy in the sense that it's not, there's jokes, sure, and I'm not talking about whether you find the jokes funny or not, that's always going to be subjective, but in terms of you understand that a joke is being told, and it's comedy, there's not very little, but there's maybe, I don't know, about 30-40% comedy and the rest of it is not. But then it's very purposeful, and you could understand it's very purposeful by the fact she's describing how jokes are told, what jokes mean, and what jokes mean to her. And that whole thing about the joke being in that section of the trauma and focusing on that trauma and what that means, and why she feels she wanted to walk away from comedy because it kept focusing on that trauma and parts where you don't necessarily tell the full story to get to the beauty of the story, like the relationship she has with her mother, or parts where you don't necessarily get to tell the full ugliness of a situation, like the parts where she actually got beaten up by that guy, because it just rests on that part. You create a tension and then you relieve that tension. I don't know. I don't feel that's how you tell. Look, I'm no professional comedian. I'm just some guy that makes jokes on the internet. But I guess that's probably not how you tell every single joke, and not every single comedian does every single joke in that way, but that's really besides the point. I think it's probably true for most jokes, especially in kind of stand-up, because you create a situation and you divert away from that situation is effectively what you do when you're telling a joke. You set something up and then you kind of divert away from that. So you create, say, a tension, divert away from a tension, or you create an expectation, say it, don't spray it, and divert away from an expectation. And with the stories that she's talking about, especially as they're very personal to her, I feel like that's really what she wanted to get across, this idea that you're presenting a version of yourself to get laughs, but that version of yourself that you end up focused on could end up destroying the person who's telling the jokes. Because she says something about self-deprecating humor, and this is something that I thought about when I was doing a few stand-up gigs a couple of years back. Nothing too big, but a few things. And I did some of that self-deprecating humor because it's kind of like what you kind of learn to do is a comedian where you kind of make fun of yourself, which is fine. I think it's important to make fun of yourself. That's part of the way we deal with things. But when you focus too much on it, it becomes, is that who you are now? You know, do you become so afraid to change because that's what's getting the laughs? You know, do you become so afraid to improve certain things about yourself, about your life, because that's what gets the laughs? And you're so focused on that it becomes a problem. You know, so yeah, I get it. You know, when you're doing certain things for so long, it becomes an issue, even though it gets laughs or it gets you fame, it gets you this, it becomes an issue. And what she talks about, was it power? I think she said, or no, reputation. And yeah, that I feel like that's true. Like I think we are very focused on reputation and getting money and power and all these things. We don't always consider what it means and what's going on behind that. In certain communities, like you are more likely to be protected if you are a pedophile than you are if you are a homosexual. Like, for example, if you come out as gay, you could be kicked out of your family, you could be disowned, all that kind of stuff. But if you're the uncle fiddling around with the kids, it's not that people like it and people are okay with it, but they won't say anything. So yeah, I think that we are too focused on reputation and maybe not making people look bad and how it reflects on us. What she said about people more focused on being right than what's she saying now? I can't remember. Something like people more focused on being right than I think creating and having an actual conversation and learning. We see that, right? We see that. It's so polarized right now. So yeah, technically not comedy. And I think I could understand that if you went into a show like this thinking it's comedy and it wasn't, I get it, you know what I mean? It's one of these things where you're like, you go in there, you're in a good mood, you want to see something, oh, it's going to be funny. And then not only is it not funny, it's like very much, a lot of it isn't even attempting to be funny, and it was kind of this, a lot to lay on somebody if you're not expecting it. It's like, imagine, you go to work and you talk to somebody, like you say, hey man, how you doing? And they just lay all their problems on you. It's kind of like, it's not that you don't care, but you are also in that thing where I'm not ready to receive all this at this moment. So I feel I could understand somebody watching this and thinking like, right? That being said, does not make it okay to go into people's DMs and start sending them harassing messages, as apparently that's happened. That's not okay. I mean, I get that your expectations were not met, and I think there is something to be said about the way the expectations were set. If you say, hey, it's comedy, and then it isn't, yeah, kind of an issue. But so yeah, I feel like with myself, because my expectations were set differently, I don't really know, but I guess I had a better idea of what it was going to be before watching it, and still chose to watch it anyway. My response is a bit different than if I thought it was going to be funny, balls to the walls, and then you watch it and it's like so I get it. But then I think I understand why you do it that way as well, because like she said in the other stand-up special about you're trying to get your story out to as many people as possible, and I think artists generally try to do that. You look for ways to get your story out to as many people as possible, and some of those ways aren't always good ways, or there's some of those ways are a bit cheeky, some of those ways are a bit naughty or a bit misleading. But I think if we're being fair, a lot of people do that sort of thing. I mean, clickbait on YouTube is a big thing, right? So we can't put it all on one person just because she did it. I think overall, I'm going to say that I think there was a lot of brilliance in what she did with this special. I can understand why it was received the way it was received by a lot of people, especially for people who aren't that familiar with Hannah Gadsby, depending on how how your expectations were set going in. But I think what she did with it and what she said, and a lot of stuff she talks about, were things I think a lot of artists feel at various points throughout their journey. This whole thing about madness and creativity, which is about Picasso not being ahead of his time, but responding to his time in that way. I think a lot of people who consider themselves creatives or expressive or artistic kind of feel like that to some degree, where you see things differently to how most people see it, and you're not sure where you fit in. And then on top of that, you're trying to get paid, right? You're trying to make money, so maybe you do things differently because how you really want to be doing it, that's not what people want to see. But yeah, I think a lot of us have these kind of thoughts throughout your expressive or creative journey about how you present your work, because you recognize that where you could put it, if you go like deep into your mind and your own uniqueness, very few people are going to relate to that. Whereas if you change it so that it becomes more, say, palatable, it's not really what you want to say, but that's what sells. And then you have people who just don't want to do that all, and they're just trying to get it out as who they are. but yeah, they get seen as crazy, and especially during times where we weren't talking about mental health. It's just, oh, you're just that crazy old guy from across the street. Oh, so yeah, I'd have to say big up Hannah Gadsby on this, and I appreciate that kind of creativity, that kind of expression, and that kind of just raw honesty. When, I mean, you're putting yourself in a very kind of wrong position when you're just laying it bare like that and just saying, hey, look, this is what we go through, and you don't take away that tension and you let people just kind of feel that this is what it is in all its ugliness or in all its beauty. It's not funny, right? But it wasn't supposed to be. But that's the thing about comedy, you know, when you're telling stories, especially stories that are based on real things, you often do change bits here or exaggerate things there so you get the joke because you're trying to make people laugh. But yeah, when you do that so much and then you end up focusing on the bits that aren't true and don't necessarily represent what's really going on, and you start to internalize that, and then you kind of forget the truth. I get it. That I see how that can be a problem as well. And I think a lot of artists experience that in some way, maybe not in the same way, but I think in some way we all experience a version of that. So yeah, I think as far as the jokes go, personally, I would say I wasn't laughing a lot. But I think in fairness, those jokes weren't meant for me. I think a lot of those jokes were meant for her audience, which I guess is mostly female, probably LGBTQ identified within, mainly identified within that. That's what I'm guessing. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I'm guessing that's largely her audience, and a lot of the jokes seem like they were directed towards that. So I'm kind of like, I could see there's a joke there, but I'm kind of like, you know. But I mean, it's cool. Not everything is meant for you, and that's just how it is. Not everything has to be for you, you know. So yeah, it was definitely something different to what I'm used to when it comes to stand-up comedy. Maybe not super different. I mean, I've seen, of course, I think we've all seen comedians do serious things before. We've all seen comedians like to stop in the middle of a show and talk about something super serious. Dave Chappelle does it quite a bit as well. Maybe not to like that much of the comedy show, right? So yeah, it's bold move, bold move, but yeah, I think, yeah, big up Hannah Gadsby on that. So, like I said, I hadn't heard of her before, at least not in any real way. I know a lot of people don't like her right now, but I gotta keep it real. I liked the Douglas special. I thought that was pretty funny. And this one had some jokes. Well, had a few jokes, really. Had some, you know, funny jokes, I guess. And, well, funny for me, as in, a lot of it was not for me. And then a large part of it was not even trying to make a joke, but let you feel that tension. And, well... well, I think she accomplished what she was trying to do. Anyway, that's what I think. Let me know what you think. Drop any suggestions, recommendations in the comments. Send them through and I'll see what I can do. Like, share, subscribe, because we're doing this 10-year Get Me Fam. More videos on the screen. Check out my channel, other channels as well. Be much appreciated. But that's going to be it for the minute. So guys, until whenever, if ever, peace.